Yeah, here's a question for both of you since you were both in the game around the same time. And I wasn't going to ask this question. It wasn't on my list of questions, but I'm hearing hints of this throughout the conversation. So we're talking about an era of music that, basically went away and was replaced by something else. And now you're talking about, there's things like M3, there's the Monsters of Rock cruise. There are events that sort of celebrate this era of music. And we were talking earlier, and you guys were both mentioning that the audience for that type of music tends to be people our age, guys and girls that are in their 40s and 50s or whatever. So my question to you guys is, because we just had a young metal band on the show, a band called Fugitive, and they're young thrash metal dudes, and they're seeing sort of they're young enough to speak to this. They're seeing, and we're seeing an audience that sort of goes back and celebrates the Metallicas and the Panteras and the Slayers, and these are young kids that grew up on a generation or two beyond those bands. They were into heavy music, but they're going back and they're finding the forefathers, if you will. So, do you see any opportunity for younger kids to go back and rediscover Dangerous Toys, Noisy Mama?
It's already happening.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's happening, and it's been happening. And you're saying M3 and there's other festivals as well, but of course Monsters of Rock, and then the Monsters of Rock production people throw a festival in Tennessee called, it used to be called Monsters on the Mountain. Now it's just called the Mountain Festival.
Right.
And it's the same ilk, it's to be general. It's just hard rock and metal bands from the 80s that had records out that at least charted and had a couple of marginal hits on MTV. That's pretty much what they're asking for. Very few young or bands sort of on the rise get on the bill, and they have some kind of nepotism going on or something is how they get on the bill. But anyway, the point is, it's a great question. The point that I was going to add to your suggestion as maybe why it's happening for, in heavier music, because there's a lot of young people. I see it all the time. Is heavier, and they also collect vinyl. There's all these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids who collect vinyl, and even younger, as Dave knows. He has a son who's all about it. But the point, Sirius radio, satellite radio, has a lot to do, and the DJs that have shows on any kind of, Ozzy's Boneyard or whatever, but they do the same thing with heavier music. I don't know the names of all of them. Liquid Metal, I think, is one of them. There's a bunch of like satellite radio stations that basically won't let these catalogs die.
But what I'm asking is, are kids embracing it? Like 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds.
This is the way they listen to music. So they're finding it because this is the way of the child.
Right, but is there preference? What I'm asking is there a younger generation whose preference is, I know it's available, but are they tuning in? Are you seeing it? Paul, are you seeing it? Jason, I know you've seen some of it, but is there an audience out there of 15, 16-year-old kids who are all of a sudden into Rat and Poison and Motley Crue and Dangerous Toys? And
I would say yes.
I would say, all right, first, we did our first Noisy Mama show, okay? We did, back on July 1st. It was, I put it together quick. I booked a club that only seats like 300 people, and I just wanted to see what would happen. We put it out there on the internet. We tried to target, as many different sites as we could. And I would say we had at least 25% of the people were young people that I had never met in my life. Some of them came with their parents, I would say, but in a lot of ways, I really feel that they were tired of being depressed by grunge music, because it's kind of depressing if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't really put any music down because I think all music is great as long as it's a good song. I'm there. Midnight at the Oasis, love it. I love some rap and things like that. But I think even rap, that's kind of hard on the ears after a certain point. They just want to hear some melodic hard rock. It's powerful chords. So I'd say yes. I think it's growing. It's up to us to put it out there to them to make them know it's there.
Yeah.
To add to that, I see it on the cruise. I see young people everywhere on the cruises, and they are there with their families who are all wearing Motorhead t-shirts and shit.
Right.
But here's their 14, 15-year-old sons and daughters also wearing a Motorhead t-shirt. So they're walking around wanting to do photos with you, and it's like, I used to go, wow, this is really weird. These little kids wanting to take their photos and sign shit. It's like, how did you hear about? Oh, here's my brother and here's my dad. We're all totally into it, man. Our house is rocking all the time. And here's a story that's also relative. I used to work at a record store, and this was a while ago now. There was a guy come in. He was a fairly young man, and he comes in and he goes, he might have been 30, 28, something like that. And I offered to help him. Can I help you find something? And he was like, I think that you can, because here's my thing. And you mentioned rap, and you also mentioned that grunge is depressing. Well, you could say Black Sabbath is depressing, and you could say Black Sabbath also has that dirge like a lot of grunge did too.
So true.
So that doesn't really resonate with me as much, but your point holds truth. So this is also relative. This young man asked me, he tells me the story. He goes, man, my littles, my kids walk around singing songs I play when I'm in the car, and I like hardcore gangster rap.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying bitches and hoes and Uzi and this, and I cut a bitch and blah, blah. And they're like, 11. So they're going to school and they're all, yo, bitch and hoe. And, it's that kind of shit. Now, I know that all of it doesn't, I like a lot of that stuff, but the stuff I usually like doesn't just resonate just with bitches, hoes, and Uzis and money and drugs and shit, right? It's deeper than that even. But his point was, I gotta start listening to something else if I'm gonna be somewhat of an influence on my kids. And I'm like, what do you think is the answer? He goes, man, I want to get back into my hard rock and metal. I'm like, you've come to the right place.
Well, vinyl too is also a big part of that, like you said.
Yeah. Vinyl's never going to go away. In my opinion, it never really did go away, because there were still a lot of clubs, like even dance clubs, where they had legit DJs who were still spinning vinyl. That's one outlet that they just didn't shut them all down. That was like, that's hysterical. That's hysteria for them to say something like that. And they're just trying to find a reason why the music business is not as growing fruit anymore. Right. And it was just a lull and a fad and a phase and a trend, and it's just never going to go away again. But anyway, so that story sort of lends itself to what's happening in the household, what Sirius satellite radio and all of the thousands of stations. There's fucking podcasts about anything you want. You can hear any song you want if you find the right station. So I think that's kind of lending itself to that era specific thing that maybe someone like you and I and even Dave are not really grown. It was like, oh, well, your record's not selling, we're going to drop you from the label. It's like, oh, do you want me to write some grunge songs? Not necessarily. You don't just like the kids aren't wearing this shit, so I'm just going to buy whatever. The kids, my clothes are old because no one in my class is dressing like this anymore. So I'm just going to start dressing like them. Fuck no. Where's your individuality? Where is you fighting the fight and wearing the Kiss t-shirt every fucking day? That's still me. That's never going to go away. So I'm
Yeah.
not waiting for anyone to join my army. There's plenty of us out there. That's my rant.